I feel like I don't understand how everyone isn't so aware of the world that we live in, you know? Like, I don't understand how everyone doesn't have sleepless nights thinking about the world that we live in and the impact that we have in this world. And I've never understood that. And I've always felt very different.
So my name's Talia Wooden. I'm 22 years old and I am, who am I feel like I'm many things. I am an activist and a filmmaker and photographer. I had an interesting childhood. My parents were very kind of politically active, both stood within like national and local Green Party. So we're very involved in party politics, but more on the kind of more radical, more grassroots, like activism side. I started taking photos really, really young. It's when I was about 7 or 8. I just had a real like random love for documenting, taking photos, making films, and I just would take photos and film everything. And I think for me, kind of discovering that could be used alongside activism was a really key moment, I think, in me being like, actually, this is something that I really love as well. It's not just like what my parents are telling me to do. One of the very first people at the first London Actions taking photos of it, and then, you know, because I was there every weekend when stuff was going on, I was there taking photos, I was putting photos out there, they started gaining traction and I started having more attention on that, which was really exciting for me because, you know, that's what the two things I was most passionate about. Like, this is a really new thing, the whole thing of like a career activist, and it doesn't mean that like someone's only doing it for that, but like you can like almost make a career out of it now, which is interesting for me. And I think I'm glad that I have the photography and the filmmaking side of it, because I think just doing it as an individual and just having a platform as an individual, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could sit comfortably with that. It would feel very counterproductive to the work that I was doing. It's just all I've ever wanted to do, you know? And I don't know why. People always ask me, like, what is it about photography? What is it about filmmaking? From such a young age, nothing has excited me more than telling stories and sharing stories with people. My mum took me up to London and I had like a tiny little point and shoot camera that I used to like take photos of everything on. So these are some of my like first ever photos of like protests, and that's me, my crazy long hair, like that protest. And this is obviously like quite a few years earlier at my dad's funeral, and we like made this like bike trailer and his like coffin, and we all like decorated it, and then we had like, there was like 200 people or something, and we all like cycled across Oxford City. And I think there was like loads of photos in like the press and stuff, because he'd been like obviously like a like quite known political.
because it always felt personal. So my dad died of lung cancer, and he was really young, and it was like it was very, very sudden. He was diagnosed and he died 6 months later. And he was 37, 38, so really young, and had never smoked, was really healthy, was a vegetarian, played loads of sport. But he'd lived like most of his adult life in Oxford, which is one of the cities with the highest air pollution levels in the country. And we know this, like for decades, air pollution levels in cities in this country have regularly breached international, like, legal limits. So it wasn't ever talked about, you never had the doctors being like, yes, air pollution has caused your dad's lung cancer. But that's what I was told by like my mum, that was the message that I was given growing up. Having that narrative, I never had the option of looking away because it was there in every aspect of my life. It was there when I went home. I didn't have a dad. And so it wasn't like, I think that for me was kind of like, any point I felt like I could disconnect and it didn't matter, I'd be like, actually, no, it really, really does, got really, really involved with the more kind of frontline grassroots campaigning in this country. Much more kind of local struggles. And then, that's led me on to a lot of work around like police abolition and land rights and like class justice. A lot of the things that are very, very relevant in this country, and have great intersections with the climate crisis and these more kind of global issues, but that are often pushed aside, I think. And especially within the climate movement, especially within the youth climate movement, there's a lot of like, we're fighting for people on the other side of the world, or we're fighting for our futures. And that's really important, but I think people often forget that actually, there's still real struggles in this country. There's still like real damage and harm being caused, for groups and within groups in this country that, haven't had justice.
Young people sweat and writhe in the barrel of a ship, their futures scrunched up and forgotten in the promises of politicians. A warm, damp hand wraps around a tiny pill. The gods can't hear you when the bass is up. Come down to the river to pray.
I was like very, very like mentally unwell from about 14, 15, and really struggled, especially in sixth form, had like a really, really difficult time. And so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, because my whole life was kind of taken up by my mental health. I feel things very deeply, both the good and the bad. A lot of who I am now and a lot of like the experiences that I've had that have led me to this point have been kind of rooted in fear. There's also a lot of passion there. I am getting to a point, I'm still working on it and I still doubt it sometimes. I'm getting to a point where I'm also doing it out of like passion and love for it. I just don't think that I will ever be completely happy and comfortable in this world, because I just feel too vulnerable to the state of the world, and that's only getting worse. So I have to work really, really hard to feel like I want to live in this world, And a big part of that for me, because of the way I've been raised, and I guess just because of who I am, is around always wanting to be a part of the struggle and the fight for a better world. I don't think I could even not do that, even if I wanted to.